Isreal Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker takes place on February 12th at UFC 271, and I am going to give my main card predictions for this fight card. Honestly, a lot of people have been complaining about this fight card, saying it's pretty weak, but I think it's actually a pretty good card. Although I won't be predicting the prelims and the early prelims, I actually think the early prelims are a lot better than the prelims. You have a lot of good up-and-coming prospects, a lot of guys making their UFC debut. Isreal Adesanya's teammates are on there. Robert Whittaker's teammates are on there. You have Alexander Hernandez taking on Renato Moicano on the early prelims. I mean, that should be a main card fight on a regular pay-per-view, but I don't know why it's on the early prelims. Anyway, guys, let's get into this. I'm going to start from the bottom of the main card, and I'm going to go to the top. Let's start off with Bobby Green versus Nasrat Haqparast. Fuck that name up for sure, man. Nasrat Haqparast versus Bobby Green. I'm going to go with Bobby Green, and I'm going to go with Bobby Green via decision. I think Nasrat Haqparast is actually pretty durable. He just hasn't impressed me in his last few fights. I know he took on Dan Hooker a few months ago and had a really lackluster performance. I've never really seen anything that impressive out of him. I know he's got some power, but Bobby Green is just way faster. And honestly, even though he's on the older side, he's really coming into his prime towards the tail end of his career. And honestly, he's making a resurgence. Extremely impressive performance against Rafael Fiziev. A lot of people thought he won that fight. I know he was getting beaten up in the first round. Towards the second round, he started coming on strong. And the third round was just a landslide Bobby Green round. Honestly, has some of the best and quickest hands in the lightweight division. And honestly, I'm not going to be surprised if we see Bobby Green cracking the the top 5, the top 6. If he wins this fight and then maybe wins one more, he is really impressive. He knocked out Ali Quinta and had basically no trouble in that fight in his last performance. I think Bobby Green's just going to be too much for Nasrat on the feet. I think he's got good enough takedown defense to stuff the takedowns, and I'm going to go with Bobby Green via decision, 30-27 decision for Bobby Green. Now the next fight, Kyler Phillips versus Marcel Rojo. I'm going to go with Kyler Phillips. Marcel Rojo's good. He's got some great power, but I just think Kyler Phillips is just a little bit too much for him. I think he's a little too quick for him. I think he's also got great power. He's phenomenal on the ground as well. Trains with O'Malley, trains with a lot of good fighters, Casey Kenny. I think Kyler Phillips is going to win this fight, and I honestly think he's going to finish Marcel Rojo. I think Marcel Rojo's got that style where he's kind of in your face, and I could see them, having a war while it lasts, but I think Kyler Phillips will get a finish. I think he might get a submission. So I'm going to call a second round submission for Kyler Phillips. I think he's going to rock Marcel Rojo after a big exchange on the feet, and I think he's going to jump on the back and choke him out. So I'm going to go with Kyler Phillips via second round submission. Moving on up the card, the number 1 middleweight contender bout, Cannanier versus Derrick Brunson. This is a fight that I'm really hyped for. And the next few fights on the card are just amazing. This is why I think the card is strong. Cannanier on paper should win this fight. He's I know Derrick Brunson just beat Darren Till with a very impressive performance. Despite what guys on YouTube like the MMA Guru are saying, it was an impressive performance. But Darren Till came in looking out of shape. He came in looking fat, and honestly, I think Darren Till had one of the shittiest performances of his career. And I just think that Cannanier won't come in out of shape, being a fat sack of shit. And honestly, I think Cannanier is just really strong. He's really powerful, and surprisingly enough, for a guy who is strong and powerful, he has good cardio. He's extremely durable. I mean, Whittaker hit him with some massive shots, basically dropped him, but he was able to survive an awful onslaught on the ground. I think Cannanier should win this fight. He's got great takedown defense. Again, towards the end of that fight with Robert Whittaker, he almost fucking, rocked Robert Whittaker and almost put him down. So I'm gonna go with Derrick Brunson. I just think Derrick Brunson is, I think he's really just fucking, he's like the Glover Teixeira of the middleweight division, and I think Derrick Brunson's gonna come through And although Jared Cannanier on paper has great takedown defense, although Jared Cannanier is the much better striker, although he's, gonna come in shape because he's a professional, and I think he's not gonna, wet the bed like Darren Till in every performance. I just think Derrick Brunson has found his stride, and as much as I want Jared Cannanier to win this because I think it would be better for the division, so we get to see a new, fresh matchup for Adesanya. I think Derrick Brunson's going to take him down and beat him up for 3 rounds and hold him down in a lackluster decision, and I think Derrick Brunson's going to win 30-27 via decision. I want Jared Cannanier to win, but that's all I can say. I think Derrick Brunson has it. So, again, this is one of those matchups where I just think that Derrick Brunson's going to win. I will not be surprised if Jared Cannanier viciously knocks him out in the first round. But Derrick Brunson's wrestling is really improved, and despite what a lot of people say, he's got incredible ground control, and I think he's just going to control Jared Cannanier on the ground. We haven't really seen too much of Jared Cannanier on the ground. I know, again, he's great, but I just think Derrick Brunson's going to win. So I'm going with Derrick Brunson. Now the next fight, this is going to be a fun one. Derrick Lewis versus Tai Tuivasa. I mean, come on, guys. This is what we thought Ngannou versus Derrick Lewis was going to be. This is going to be one of those fights where you're going to be screaming in your seat. These guys are going to be wailing punches, slipping punches, and you're just going to be, on the edge of your seat with goosebumps, thinking, okay, who's getting knocked out and when? I think it's going to be a barn burner fight for 3 minutes, and I think that it's going to end by knockout. Here's the thing, it doesn't matter how durable you are when you're up against a guy like Derrick Lewis. Tai Tuivasa is durable, he's tough. But it doesn't matter when you're facing a guy like Derrick Lewis. Tai Tuivasa has one-punch knockout power, but it's just not on the same freakishly powerful level as Derrick Lewis. I think that Tai Tuivasa has an advantage in technique. I think he has an advantage in speed. I think he's got great leg kicks. I just think that in order to beat a guy like Derrick Lewis, you have to be able to hit as hard as him, which Tai Tuivasa doesn't. And you have to intimidate him with your size. We've seen Cyril Gane beat Derrick Lewis. We've seen Francis Ngannou not take any punishment from Derrick Lewis, even though he lost that fight. And I think it just boils down to, if you put a guy against Derrick Lewis who's basically the same size or bigger, he's going to be a little more reserved. With a guy like Tai Tuivasa who hits hard, Derrick Lewis doesn't necessarily fear that kind of opponent. And there's nothing to really stop him from just blitzing forward and just swinging massive overhands and bombs. And I think Derrick Lewis has got a great chin. I think he's going to knock Tai Tuivasa out. I think I'm going to go with Derrick Lewis with a first-round knockout for Derrick Lewis. So, yeah, this is the fight that I'm pretty sure that I don't see Derrick Lewis getting knocked out. Tai Tuivasa is probably better on a technical level, but, again, you just can't get hit by Derrick Lewis. I'm going with Derrick Lewis for a first-round knockout, vicious knockout. Now moving on up the card, I already dropped the video on this, but Isreal Adesanya versus Robert Whittaker. I'm going to go with Isreal Adesanya via decision. I'm going to go with a 48-47, 3 rounds to 2, or a 49-46 for Isreal Adesanya. I think he's just going to pick Whittaker apart at range. I know Whittaker is going to be more patient, but that doesn't necessarily help you anyway against a guy like Isreal Adesanya. If you're too patient against him, all he has to do is just, jump around the cage and kick you at range, Leg kick you at range for 5 rounds. He'll do that. He'll coast to a decision if he needs to. He's really hard to get in on, and again, you can't just blitz the guy. He's going to knock you out if you just blitz him. Robert Whittaker has to do everything perfect, as I've said. In order for Whittaker to win this fight, he has to, be patient but not too patient. He has to be aggressive but not as aggressive as he was in the first fight. He's got to hurt Adesanya. He's got to hurt his knees. So I think, but again, those head kicks that Adesanya was using to counter Whittaker's leg kicks to the knee are going to be in this fight. Whittaker had a horrible time checking Jared Cannanier's kicks. I mean, Jared Cannanier really chewed up Whittaker's legs in that fight, and Whittaker didn't really have an answer. Adesanya has better leg kicks than Jared Cannanier, much better leg kicks. He's got longer legs than Jared Cannanier. I just see Isreal Adesanya chewing up Whittaker's legs. If Whittaker comes in and gets a little frustrated because he's not landing as much as he likes, I think he's going to get hurt towards the end of the fight. And Whittaker is going to have a hard time taking down Isreal Adesanya. He's got fantastic takedown defense. He's basically long, got a really long base and torso, perfect for, you know, stuffing takedowns. Whittaker has to do everything perfectly. He's got to have, the stars have to align for him to win. I just don't see it happening. I'm going to go with Isreal Adesanya picking apart Robert Whittaker. I think Whittaker is going to win a round or two. He's going to get a takedown or two on Adesanya. But as the fight goes on, I think the last 3 rounds, it's going to be more decisive. And I won't be surprised if Isreal Adesanya knocks out Robert Whittaker either in the 4th or 5th round. But I think that Adesanya is going to win this in a decision. And I think it's going to be pretty decisive. I don't think it's going to be that close, but I think it'll be relatively competitive in the beginning of the fight. And I think as it goes on, he's just going to run away with it. So Adesanya via decision. So anyway, guys, those are my predictions for the main card at UFC 271 for this upcoming Saturday. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you agree or if you disagree. Follow me on Instagram, LucasJT19, and subscribe, leave a like. Thank you very much. Take it easy.